How do you actually get things done with ADHD? I'm an ADHD coach with ADHD, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I've helped over 1,000 clients 2 to 10x their productivity. Okay, so I wrote my strategy down here. This first fact I'm going to tell you is going to surprise you. Step 1 is to acknowledge you are on autopilot all day. 90% of your day is on autopilot. That means that you don't control 90% of the things you do every day because they are a habit, good or bad. So that means you're getting the results you're getting because you've trained yourself to actually think that that's what you should be doing, whether you intended to or not. So then when you try to do something that's outside of that, you're using motivation, and the fuel for motivation is just mental energy. So if you wake up and you don't have mental energy, and you're screwed. That's it. The day is done. So to solve this, we have to find out what you do repetitively every day so that you don't have to keep using motivation as fuel. It's unpredictable to know when you're actually motivated and when you're not, so you're in very little control of your day. So how do we approach this? Let's say that you're playing a battle game, right? Like Fortnite or something. A lot of times for battle games, you get to choose your weapons beforehand. You don't just come in there with fists and that's it, right? And then in the whole game, there's nothing but fists for you and everyone else gets really amazing weapons, right? You need a strategy. In fact, you don't just need a strategy about you need a strategy about your enemy, the enemy task. In order to defeat your enemy, you have to know their strengths and their weaknesses. You can't expect to win against a camper, someone who has a long distance weapon is just sitting and waiting for you to run into a perfect spot so they can attack. The same way you take on an enemy that's just coming up to you with a knife aggressively, right? So if you don't know what enemy you're fighting, you're already lost. And the same goes for tasks. This task that is heavy and drains you of your energy is your enemy. You need to know your enemy, know its strengths, know its weaknesses, and know how you get around it too. Now, some tasks require a bit more of an aggressive approach, while other tasks require more calm, calculated, and patient approaches. So in order to know what kind of approach to take, you have to know which category it lands in, right? So there are recurring tasks, things you do repetitively. And there are spontaneous tasks, things that just come up out of nowhere and just destroy your day. We take the recurring tasks and turn them into routines, while we take the spontaneous tasks and label them. So for recurring tasks, since you do them all the time, you don't want to have to constantly be thinking them, using motivation for something that you can easily turn into autopilot. Instead of using mental energy, we're going to make it into a routine that you don't even think about. When you brush your teeth, you don't think about getting the toothpaste, getting the toothbrush, dipping it in the water, brushing one tooth, then the next. You don't think about that stuff. You just think, I'm gonna brush my teeth. You zone out while you do it, and then you're done. So here's a very common struggle I hear from clients a lot that we turn into routines. We take dirty dishes, right? You're just not motivated to do it at all. You never want to do it. What I like to do is approach it in 2 different ways. I like to make you motivated, but I also like to turn it into a routine so you don't need motivation. So not only are you doing the task, you're crushing the task. So an example of this is I am very specific, first off, with what the task is and where I'm going to do it, when I'm going to do it. So for me, for example, I do the dishes every day after dinner time. Doesn't have to be a specific time, because if there is, you might fall off track at that time and think, oh no, now my whole night's ruined. So I just say, after dinner, do all the dishes, done. Now for the motivation aspect, listen to a podcast that you only listen to during that time and no other time of the day. Now you're motivated and your dopamine is in your control instead of you in dopamine's control. And if you can't control yourself, have your friend hold you accountable. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video if you're liking it so far. Now we have the spontaneous tasks. Since we can't plan for every single thing that happens to us randomly out of nowhere, what we can do is we can plan for that kind of thing, label that type of thing, and we say, okay, this is what I call principle. You can see this video above to see what my principles are. They'll explain it really well in detail. But basically, you create a principle for that type of task. So now you know every time you run into that specific type of task, you know to do that type of thing. And this thing is one answer that applies to all kinds of things like that. So here's an example I wrote. Every time I'm too drained to contact someone, like answering an email, texting back a friend about something complicated, or making an appointment for the dentist or something, I create a principle. And a principle, you can see in this video above, that explains the whole thing really thoroughly. I'm just going to say a really vague version of what it is. It's basically just where you say, I'm the type of person that blank, which is an action, so I can blank result. You get as specific as you can with the action and then the result as well, so you know and you're really, really clear what you want and how you're going to get there. You have to kind of see the problem coming and then kind of try to solve it beforehand by seeing it this way. Now, if you can't figure out solutions for these, This is what you do. Think of all of your problems that you don't know how to solve as a blank piece of paper. That should be a map instead that tells you what to do, how to get to that end goal. The first thing you do is you write down a list of all of the problems that will come up. The second thing you do is write down the win-win, right? So that's basically where you write down how to serve yourself and help yourself get what you need while also being what's needed for that task. Great example, I had a client today and his mom was coming in town. While he's trying to build routines, but now he has to host for her and there's so much to show her around town and run a bunch of errands. It drained his energy a lot and he just kind of got out of the swing of things when he was working. A win-win we created was to make his routines more flexible for when his parents were there. So instead of big chunks, we have tiny little pieces. And he can move them wherever he wants in his schedule in the day. But none of that would mean anything if he didn't first acknowledge that he has to have lower expectations, because you only have so much mental energy to give. So it's only going to help you if you start lower with low expectations and then go from there, instead of starting high and then trying to only stay there or go higher, which almost never works. The next step for that is to basically make it more specific, more detailed, write out locations, the specific things you need. And the final step for that is to basically just put it in your calendar somehow or set an alarm for it. If you want a 2 to 5x your productivity literally today, click the link in the description below. We'll hop on a strategy session. I'll tell you exactly why you're struggling, how to get out of it, so you can take on any task, no matter how draining, without ever burning out again. If you like this video, you're gonna love this video. Later, neighbors.